We're live.
Yeah, I don't know about the quality, but we are live.
Looks like we might need to clean my lens again.
Again? Okay. Sorry, guys.
It's all like...
Oh my God, it's worse.
Yeah, we need it. Here.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It looks like that Star Trek director who has like the lens flares on everything.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let us know if you can't hear us or anything. Obviously, we're doing something a little different. It's probably just the light. I mean, it's the windows. It is what it is. So.
Yeah, no, it looks better.
Cool.
All right. It
You
still
ready?
hadn't reflected on here. There.
It's
there
going,
we go.
It's very nice.
All right. Let us know if you can hear us okay and everything, and we'll get started.
All right.
Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Jason.
And today we are talking about all of the Heaven and Earth grocery store, but especially this last reading of it by James McBride. So if this is your first time joining us, please make sure this is the video that you really want to be watching. We talk about the book as if you have also read it yourself. So if we are going to be talking ahead of where you've read, you need to back it up and go back into the playlist and find the most appropriate video for where you are in the book, because we don't want to ruin anything for you. What else? We are on Google Music as a podcast, and we're on Good Reads as a community at Books We Never Read, and we hope that you join us in all of those places. If you are live, we'd love for you to pop into the live chat and tell us about the book, what you thought about it. And if you're catching us on the replay, we want you to comment in the comment section, whether it's shortly after we've just finished the book or whether it's 20 years from now. We want to know what you have to say about it. So hop on in that chat and tell us all about it.
Yep. And if you are planning to join us for our next book, we are going to be reading Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. We're going to put out that syllabus immediately after this this episode right here. I've already got it. I'm excited.
So anyways, what'd you think about the book?
What'd y'all think? What'd you think?
It was a lot. I immediately had a cathartic cry at the end of it. Just an uncontrollable quick sob. It was good.
Yeah, it was really good. It's still a book where like, it's one of, this sounds dumb, but like it's one of those books that's like just a story, right? It's just a story. There's no, I don't think there's like any. It was just telling you something, right? Like it wasn't trying to get somewhere. It wasn't trying to, achieve. It was just a story. You know what I mean? It wasn't, and I really, really liked it.
It was just a story, but it was the story of just hundreds of people, and a beautiful story about this community of people who saw themselves as distinctly different from each other in a lot of different ways, but then at the end came together to do this one huge thing. Yeah.
But before we get into like the meat of the reading for this week, tell us about the afterword. Did y'all read the afterword? You found the afterword, I think, or the
the acknowledgement.
Yeah, the acknowledgements. Yeah.
Where he talked about that as a kid, he worked at this Camp Shona, even though it wasn't called Camp Shona, and how impacted his life was by the director of the camp and all the other people, and it's about giving that dignity. Not giving, but
recognize.
Yeah, the dignity in each other and ensuring equality for everyone and being an active part of that. It's one thing, to quietly in your own home believe in equality for everyone, and it's a very different thing to make steps to make this world a better place for people.
I think it's cool that, he was inspired by this camp director who was just like a guy, I'm sure he wanted to inspire people. A lot of people who get into that sort of thing usually do, but I don't know. But to have made such an impact, to come back 50 years later or whatever it is and inspire this kind of story, I think is super cool. So
yeah, got teary in the epilogue. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
The narrator at the beginning was Miggy. Yes. So I spent some time this morning going back and figuring out who that narrator was. And Peggy, what was it that tuned you into the fact that it was Miggy? For me, it was the Who Shot John reference. Rusty also used that phrase, but he used it when he was talking. No, he was talking to paper. But anyways, Miggy used that phrase the most throughout the book. And that phrase came up a lot, the Who Shot John business of it all.
Interesting. Well, and so she's kind of an interesting narrator because of her role as sort of like a fortune teller and a predictor of the future. She gives her fortunes in writing.
That no one can read.
Yeah, and that's sort of the way that we receive this, in writing.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, she's the only one with a typewriter that we know of, So it makes sense that she would be the narrator. I did not really understand that reference. Who shot John? What does that mean? So, okay. Growing up, when I heard the Who Shot John, I thought that was referencing the TV show Dallas. But this book preceded, or the timeline in this book preceded the Who Shot John. And so I don't know what that phrase originates from, and I will Google it after the show today, because now I need to know.
Yeah.
And I forgot to Google it earlier. Let's see. I also really like with Miggy's story, or her character. So I like that they're the low gods. I felt like that name was very symbolic to who they were as a people, especially since she had the more, kind of like voodoo-esque side of, what they do. The more spiritual, the more, I'm not saying it was voodoo, but more spiritual, more tapping into the ancestry, recognizing their roots, that kind of thing. It sounded very, to have the name Low God, right?
That's a cool name.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a nod to that, the ancestry, behind your own spirit, that you're tapping into those spirits. So I thought that was really cool. And, it's the low gods kind of against, not the big god, but you got the Christians that live downtown, and then you've got everyone else up on the hill
who think so highly of themselves, right?
Right.
But they're not the ones who are doing the right thing,
right?
Yeah, sure.
It was all very interesting, and again, you see people from the people who live downtown's perspective, there's not much difference from Chicken Hill and the Low Gods. What was that area called? I can see it, but I can't remember what it was called. But they don't see much difference there. But again, the people within each community notices these distinct differences between them. And it's just the story was really cool. There were so many characters in this story, and there were so many backstories for these characters. I don't understand how James McBride included all of these people and all of their family histories and their journey from whatever country to get to where they are now. How did he include all of that? And we were soaking in every page of it and not scooching past it quickly to get back to the story at hand. He did such a great job.
Well, because I think that is the story, right? The whole Shona murder thing is almost incidental, right? It just the whole Dodo thing is almost incidental, because I don't think this is a book about Shona or about Dodo. It just isn't. It's a story about. It's a book about a community, and the two big things that were happening. It's really one event, right? Shona and Dodo are wrapped together, but they are the focal point that I guess Miggy is relating. But it's not a story about them,
And what you just said, the two are related. They're not two separate stories. Right. Bernice hit that nail right on the head. There's never them. It's never me or them. It's us. Yeah. But to outsiders looking into the stories about this community, they would see the story of Dodo and the story of Shona as two different stories. They would see them as there's them and there's them.
Yeah.
But Bernice got it. Even though she distanced herself, she was still there. She was still paying attention. So good. This is just one of those books that you have to read. And I'll be honest with you, I almost stopped reading. There was a day that I was reading on this third reading, and it was when it hinted what Son of Man was thinking about Dodo.
Yeah.
And I happened to have stopped the book at that point just because it was time for me to stop reading, and that was I really didn't think I was going to pick it back up and finish it because I couldn't bear to read anything else happen to Dodo.
So let's talk about that, about Son of Man. Why is he in this book? What is that?
He's just an obstacle, you know?
He's an obstacle. I mean, like, you could have any obstacle that's not like molesting people in a mental hospital, right? Like there's plenty. The book is only obstacles, right? Like we have plenty of these. Why is he there just to do that and then get killed in a tunnel by Nate? I have an answer for this.
Yeah.
So I have two guesses.
Okay.
Right? Miggy says something real interesting whenever they're at the cutting up the pie map conference, right? And she said, and she says, you know, you're gonna run into Son of Man, and Nate says, I don't know him, and she says, that's okay, he knows you. Guess number one, I think that Son of Man is Nate's son. They have like a similar demon in them where they are like, you know, Nate has to like suppress this badness in him, right? This thing that sent him to prison before, when he was Nate Love. The people in prison, you know, have told Fatty or whoever it was that went.
Fatty.
Yeah, you know, like, you know, he's a bad dude. You need to be careful. And then, you know, so he and Son of Man are from the same place. I think Son of Man is probably about the right age to be a firstborn son of Nate. What does Son of Man refer to, right? Maybe the man is Nate. And I'm not sure that Nate understands, perhaps, if this is true, that Son of Man is his son, but he sees the evil. It says that he sees that thing in Son of Man that he sees in himself, and he's basically like, he's relieving him of that. He's relieving Son of Man of this burden that Nate has had to carry. Now, if that's not true, the other option is that it's sort of a symbolic way of Nate killing his old self.
Right.
And that's certainly possible, but I don't think it's necessary because I think that Nate has overcome, you know, by doing this for Dodo and by risking these things and leaving behind his family to go and give Dodo a better life. I think he shows that he's done that. And so I much prefer the Son of Man is Nate's son theory.
I also thought that when she said that. And so I think that there's something there. You know, he talked about when we learned what Nate's childhood was like, how he ended up without his parents. He killed his father. And then he also started killing for hire. And then he ended up in prison after killing a rapist. Did I understand all that correctly?
Yeah, he went to prison for killing someone that someone was going to kill anyway.
Right.
Is what it says. Yeah.
But there is a part there that talks about the low gods and how things were different for the black community, whether they were living in the South or living in the North. You know, the racism was still there, but it was more concealed or discreet or, I don't know, not face value in the North. But anyways, there's a discussion there of Son of Man indeed. Son of Man was better than Nate's own father, who had been destroyed by the move north and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, like, there's definitely indications here that we should see Son of Man as Nate's past.
Yeah.
Whether it's biologically or not.
Well, and I mean, like, in a way, he is Nate's past, but also Nate's future, if he is his son, right? But so, like, you know, if Nate kills his father and his own son, you know, and then now goes to die without any children. Otherwise, you know, he's ending that line.
He's the last of the loves.
Yeah.
You know, except that Dodo takes his name.
Except that Dodo takes it, and so it becomes a better thing. Yeah. So then I did see where some people online think that perhaps Son of Man is the son of the rapist that Nate kills. Which would also kind of explain, you know, it's giving, I'm trying to give some kind of credence to, like, the perversion that the Son of Man has and his capacity to do evil. I'm trying to tie that into, like, bloodlines and family.
That
right? Like,
really makes sense.
And so that could be possible, you know. And so he knows who you are because you killed his daddy.
Because you killed his dad.
But why his mom would let him know who his dad, you know, like, I don't know, you know. he wouldn't have come from a place where he necessarily would, want to know who his father was, I suppose. But anyway, those are a couple options that we have.
But I mean,
and
you
I'm
might
not
have
sure that
figured
we
it
know.
out just through people talking.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, maybe that works. That.
And he doesn't have to be any of those things, right? Peggy's saying that he could have just been a blending of like sort of all these inner demons, and that's certainly true. But it's that one. And when Miggy says it doesn't matter if you don't know who he is, he knows you. Sort of like it doesn't matter if you understand your own inner evil.
Right.
It knows you. And she could have said that line to like literally anybody in this
Right.
book.
So that's interesting.
But I just thought he was a weird character to be thrown in there with some weird details.
Well, and it's also like just to provide that air of realism to the book. This world is not split into these are the good guys and these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
We're all mixed up in there together, and some on the good side have bad people on the team, and vice versa. And it's not you can just trust this person because they're part of this community.
Yeah.
Every person is their own person building this community, and there's challenges and redemptions along the way with different people. Ugh.
So what about our other demon, Doc Roberts? And I was talking to one of our viewers over the course of the week, and he wanted to know specifically, was it enough justice?
That's such a tough question. I'm glad with how Doc Roberts died. He died alone. He died in his drunken stupor, going from loving his town to believing he was being replaced. And he should be replaced. That attitude should be replaced. And when he died in that well, and there was that, compared him to the detached pipe. He was just as detached as that pipe was. His wife didn't miss him. His kids didn't miss him. His community didn't miss him. No one built statues. He was worthless, an absolute worthless person. And I'm very glad that he died on accident, that no one had his murder on their hands. But him dying does not erase the damage that he did throughout his life.
Right.
He hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just dying can't provide justice for that.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't really believe in this like balancing the scales situation, and so I agree. It doesn't end the pain. It might have prevented some, but like how do we know that?
Future.
Yeah, it's hard to prove that. But
he wasn't sorry. He didn't feel bad about what he did. He felt bad that the girl he lusted over was now dead, and he didn't get what he wanted from it.
Yeah.
That's what he felt bad about.
Well, so our reader was saying, exactly the same thing you were saying, that he loved that Doc Roberts died not because of anything Doc Roberts had done, but because he was mistaken for someone else. And that nobody missed him, and that his wife didn't miss him, and his kids didn't miss him, and he didn't become a martyr. He wasn't a hero. All Doc Roberts wanted to be was remembered, and his family had been here for like 170 years or whatever nonsense, that he cared about, and he just came and went, right? Like it was just over, and nobody cared, and that is, and so let's change the word justice, right? Is it enough revenge? And I feel like this is the right kind of revenge, because he didn't go out important. He didn't go out remembered. Nobody even knew where he was. He just disappeared. And when they finally found him, it gets washed away. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is not something I had discussed with anybody yet, but this idea of Doc Roberts not being important in the end, I kind of see. I think it's weird that the story of Dodo and Nate ends in the epilogue. It's not the end of this. It's the thing after the story, right? Like the story just sort of ends, and then you're like, oh, by the way, they made it and they went away, and for me, the fact that bit is in the epilogue is also kind of saying like these people in particular, even though I care about them way more than I care about Doc Roberts, aren't important in the way that we want our heroes to be important. Dodo was important to the generations of people that surrounded him, in this epilogue or whatever. But like his story ending there to me was sort of like, this story isn't about him, and no individual person. It's not about you, you know. And I think that's an important theme for us to take away from this, because so many people in power think that the story is about them. But I feel like we're also being hinted at that, like, the story isn't about the underdog either. It's about everybody, and his story, you know, and like, it's not even about Monkey Pants, right? Who is like perhaps the most heroic person that we have in this whole thing. But it's about everybody working together, and it's about like community and things like that.
So what's the point of an epilogue? What does the word epilogue actually mean?
It means after the words.
Okay, so I see that Doc Roberts died before the epilogue. His story is over. And we have these different call-outs to things in the future, right? Like, you know, the cell phone, and we have Fatty and Soap looking towards the future and all that stuff. Doc Roberts died in the past. That is symbolic, that we need to kill off that kind of thing. I am not making a call to action. We need to, you know, we need to replace these old thoughts, these harmful, worthless thoughts, and look forward to a future of love. And this epilogue gave us literally a future of loves.
Yes.
The love line did not end with Nate. There were 5 children and a multitude of grandchildren surrounding Nate Love Jr., who is continuing this line of love into the future. That's what I saw. We closed the book on Doc Roberts. We closed the book
I like your interpretation better.
on the KKK and racism, and believing that there's not room in this country, believing that we're so important that we couldn't be replaced. If my way of thinking is too old and not working for the future, it's time for me to be replaced. We need to recognize that. And we close the book on that. We open the future to love.
So the same person I was talking to about Doc Roberts also kind of made the interesting remark that, you know, for Nate and Dodo to have a life, they had to go back to the South, which is interesting.
So bizarre.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, they were able to go back to the Low Country. They were able to go back and...
But it's homecoming. It's from whence you came. So much of this book reminds me... We've been making a lot of references to O Brother, Where Art Thou? And I think this book is reminding us of O Brother, Where Art Thou? Because this book is reminding us of the Odyssey in a lot of ways. And that theme, that motif of homecoming, you know, that's just a universal theme in literature. And it is here as well. That's the one place where you can be whole, you can... There's that nostalgia with it, you know, that this is where you're from.
But homecoming to the South is so complicated, right? Like it's complicated, but home is wherever Nate and Dodo can be free, right? And I think it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to feel weird because I think we're supposed to feel like they can go north, you know, and the whole concept of this period of time for like the last 30 years before the story takes place is that, you know, that this can be home, and also the idea that like it's not home yet, not anywhere, you know, and it can be better.
Another book that this reminded me of was a book called Black Boy by Richard Wright, and it is a super famous book. I mean, it is like in the catalogs of American literature. It's a really important book to read, and I super recommend it. But it kind of details this topic too. I mean, he spent his whole childhood trying to get out of the South, and he made it up north to Chicago and realized that the racism was still there. It was just veiled, you know, and he still couldn't get ahead. He still had to steal, and he had to break the law just to live. So you're forced to be a criminal, and you get caught in this cycle of trouble just because you're trying to survive. And so it is interesting, and it is complicated that they had to go back to the South in order to be free.
Well, and because like the Low Gods are specifically saying like we remember what it was like at home, and they're I can't remember what word they used, but they're like somewhere in Africa, right? Like they call it like Africa land, like because they weren't sure where specifically,
right?
But you know, but they had these ideas of traditions from home, you know,
and that centers you. You know, there's a whole, this is complicated too. Do you adapt completely to the new customs and shed everything from the past, or do you hang on to the past because it helps enrich your lives and everyone else's lives around you, or whatever? But the Logos are the example of people who were able to remember some things, whether it's remembered correctly or not. It's adapted into their way of life, and it gave them something within themselves to hold on to, a standard amongst themselves to stay with.
Yeah.
And it centered them.
And we see this theme repeated with all the Jewish people, right? What are they supposed to keep and what are they supposed to get rid of? And
Absolutely.
And Malachi thinks that the Americans are dirty, but being American for them is the future, right? They came here to do that, and they may not be happy about what they found or whatever, but somehow you have to make it work, I guess.
The author did a really great job of drawing these parallels between the communities, that all their struggles and their concerns and how to adapt and what to hang on to and all those things. It was the same, and we got a hint that it was similar in the Italian community, and through Big Soap and his mom and
She's a good
and everything else. There's so many tie-ins. Like, this is a book that you could read again and see an even richer web of how the characters tied together.
Yeah.
And you spoke earlier of Monkey Pants, but Shona and Bernice equal Monkey Pants and Dodo.
Yeah.
They are this parallel link from the past to the future. I can't. I'm really glad the camera's farther away today because I've just been like crying this whole time. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend. Again, this is a book I'll probably recommend to everybody because not everybody wants to read science fiction and other things. But I feel like there's got to be a warning on it. Like, this is gonna be heavy.
It is heavy. Anyway, I'm not gonna have any mascara left by the time we're done with this show. All right, yeah. What's next? What's happening in the chat? I think the guilt would have eaten him up eventually. He knew that what he did was messed up.
Yeah, Doc Roberts, like if he hadn't been mistakenly pushed into a well, would have eaten himself alive. I think with the guilt, and it would have driven him mad. At some
but that
point.
doesn't mean he would have stopped.
Oh, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he would have gone insane.
And what's even more dangerous than a person who's okay with doing bad things, a person who feels like they're not redeemable anymore, and continues to do the bad things.
Yeah.
Oh, Peggy says that you really see how connected everyone is when they explain the Pullman Porter money. Watching that trail of money and whose hands it all went to. And that's another reason I think that solidifies that Miggy is the one who's the narrator. Because Miggy's the one, I think she's the final hands of moving that money around.
Well, yeah, and so that bit finally tied a lot of people in together, right? Because Isaac was a character who was just there for a lot of the book. And
but his name was known.
Yeah.
And in all of that, whose name was not detailed? Doc Roberts.
Yeah.
It was only the people that were solving the problem.
Yeah.
And the shul has water at the end, and we're all good.
Yep.
No more frogs. I don't know.
What's up with Malachi's wife? We never got any resolution on that, and I really wanted some. So, I don't know.
He might not have really had one.
He might not have had one.
He might have just married God and moved on. I don't know how the Jewish community tackles
I really
that
thought
one.
we were going to get something there.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too.
I'm kind of sad that Nate had to leave Addie, to make this all happen. I feel like he could have taken her with him.
But she met him down there.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that part.
Yes.
Okay.
So it made it seem like he wasn't ever going to see her again.
Okay.
But by the end,
Gotcha.
she was there as well,
Okay.
building this $300 farm.
Yeah.
With all of them. Yeah, they were all there together. As far as I understood, but y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong.
I started this book reading it and I finished it audiobook, and the narrator, I don't know who it is, did a fantastic job. Just fantastic job.
Yeah. Yeah. The epilogue ended on hope and perseverance and enduring. Yep.
Yeah, I like your interpretation. I still think that the point we're supposed to take home is that like it's the community and the usness, and not like the individual. But you know, playing on the idea that like the line of love has continued. I think that's very clever of the author.
And all you need to do is just reach your hand out, you know? I mean, that's all you, and like, that's literally what Monkey Pants did, was he reached his finger out.
Yeah.
And that was enough.
So in that scene, whenever he starts to distract Son of Man, it talks about how like the floor shook more than like it has ever. What is that? What happened there?
I think he had his worst seizure.
Oh, and that's what shook the floor? Okay. At first I thought it was like the train pulling in, maybe, and then that never happened, and then I just never figured it out. Okay, I got you.
But it might have also been kind of like, what is it, like Deus Ex Machina or whatever, you know?
You're doing good. You're doing good. Keep going. What you thinking?
But you know, I mean, it was a divine intervention. Let me say it in English.
Yeah.
And it was this power emitted from Monkey Pants that changed the course of Dodo's life.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, I think it works. Yeah.
But I think literally, quite literally, his seizure was so intense, it was shaking the crib so hard that Dodo could feel it coming through the floor into his crib.
Shelby was asking if Penhurst is as bad as it's described in the book, and I honestly haven't even thought to go and look it up, but most of these places are no bueno, right? Like it's bad news. And even today, some of these places are rough. You know, definitely better than this, but I mean, they didn't have a good understanding of, you know, all these different things, and psychiatry at the time was quite new, and
very expensive.
I mean, you know, this is 20 years after if you got shot in the leg, they just sawed it off, right? I mean, like they didn't know what they were doing, and I don't think that everybody. I think a lot of it is laziness, right? Like the day workers just sticking them in the room and letting them just like stand there with nothing to do. That kind of thing still happens, and some of that's laziness, but. But I don't think everybody in there was like trying to be malicious, you know. But
complicit, you know.
But complicit, or like the doctor who shows up after Son of Man clearly seemed interested in like, hey, what are you doing? Like he seemed to care about what was an obvious injustice that was happening.
Right.
You know, so that's good.
Right. Right.
But they also were like doping everybody up to the gills.
Yeah, like what it said. Poor Dodo for 4 weeks was still doped up and couldn't remember really anything.
Yeah, but like
that medicine.
That happens too, right?
And it might have been for the best.
Yeah.
It says that he forgot all that stuff. He couldn't. He couldn't remember a lot of the worst of it.
Yeah.
Ugh, I'm never gonna emotionally recover from this book. I'm not. It was good.
Yeah, it was super good. I'm glad we picked it. I'm glad you picked it.
Me too. Peggy sent me an article, I think, about Penhurst. I need to.
She just said that. We need to listen to it. It's a
podcast. Yes. Sorry. We will.
Yes, we will. Do you have any other notes or highlights?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm all distracted. But I do. Oh, that's the wrong button. But you talk amongst yourselves for a second. I don't know. Waiting for the feature soap.
I think one of the things there's like a lot of little like jokes, and they're not really jokes, but funny things in here. And one of the things I liked was how mad everybody that Doc got to march in the trumpet parade but play a tuba, right?
So stupid.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one of those like entitlement things, right? Like he could do whatever he wanted to, and people weren't gonna, you know, criticize him for it or whatever. So.
Oh, one of the things that I just kept noting throughout, and it really grinds my gears. But the minute anyone, like any immigrant or anyone, has confidence in their abilities and knows their worth and does a good job, people like Doc Roberts in the world arrogant and they think they're better than us. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want?
I think about this a lot. Because I think that you should, like, for example, if you have a son, you should want your son to be better than you.
Yeah.
But I think about that with like a lot of things. I think that you should want the people who come after you to be better than you, especially if you like teach them. And so I do a lot of like teaching, even if it's just like games or whatever. And if I've taught you and you're better than me, that means I've done a good job, right? Like, and I don't think it has to be quite the ego death that Doc Roberts and people like him make it out to be, you know. If you are the best and you die the best, then that means that the
you didn't do
next
a good
best
job.
is the second best that was when you were alive. And if that continues to happen, then things just get worse and worse, right?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense. So.
It does not make sense.
But I get it. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but I understand this way of thinking because so many people think this way. And I'm guilty of it. I have been guilty of it, you know.
And I mean, but talk about arrogance.
Yep.
To think that you have just a right to just be better just by existing than other people.
Well, and if you can't be better than somebody, then you can make them worse, and then you're better, right? And that kind of thing happens here in this story and in real life, I suppose. So.
It breaks my brain. When Big Soap and Fatty were down in the well and they were changing the pipes around and all that stuff, there is this descriptive line that I have read 50 times. I just keep coming back to it. The big man's hair splayed back in a straight line as the water blasted him. This whole scene, I was terrified. I didn't know if they were going to drown down there. I didn't know if this was going to work out. I didn't know where it was going. And all we got out of the whole scene was this incredibly detailed description of how they tapped into the line. There was tons of pressure behind it. They supported each other because Fatty was squatted down behind him, shielded, but also kind of bracing him. But just his hair, like they described it as having the force of a fire engine hose, which will like eat your skin off. And Soap just stood there, took it all to the face, and calmly did his little pipe work while his hair is going straight back behind him. I mean, it was just such a like I was terrified when I read it, but that image in my mind is so clear. This author is amazing. And if I weren't afraid of my heart breaking into two, I would want to read more of his books.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my heart was racing. Anyways. So that was that. I had that highlighted. Hair splayed back in a straight line. Incredible. These guys were just I mean, if you asked me, like, hey, you want to go down in this manhole and switch the water lines? Who are you? You talking to me? I wouldn't even understand. I don't even get how it works. That's so cool. And then, okay, so Rusty was kind of a weird character. Like, we saw him and we didn't, and he was supposed to show up and he didn't. And who's Rusty?
Yeah.
We saw him a lot at the beginning. He was really sweet for paper. But anyway, there was a lot of repeating of the first couple of bits of the Statue of Liberty poem. Give us your poor, you're tired, you're weak. We saw it with Doc Roberts, and it was give us your poor, you're tired, you're weak, and they'll replace us.
Yeah.
Oh, if I could say what I really wanted to say.
Well, and that part of it, it's just, that is literally supposed to be the point of America, right? Like that's on the big statue we got or whatever, and then people hate it, you know, or are shocked when it happens.
Yeah.
Surprise Pikachu.
And then let's see, we had that quote pop up when Nate was killing Son of Man. That was another time. Give me your tired, you're poor, yearning to be free. And he felt all of those things. For the eyes gazing at him were not filled with hate or anger, but rather with sympathy and hurt. Son of Man looked into Nate's eyes and saw beneath the swirling pools of iridescent calm both Nate's past and his own future, and the future of the community that they both had left behind, and even the reasons why. The sight stunned him, and he felt for a moment as if he were blinded by a great light. So that was another time we heard it, and then there was another time as well. Someone might be able to find it faster. Yeah, why did Son of Man beat up the Eggman?
He's just sadistic, right? And I hate to boil it down to just like that, but that is, I guess, the point of his character is that some people are just bad. I guess I don't know.
See, there was another time in the Jewish community when the "Give me your poor, you're tired" popped up. So it was in all three. Mm-hmm. There was a point there with all of it, and I've lost track. I did have highlighted, I don't think I talked about it. I don't know if it was in this section or the previous section, but the White Knights would decide who were the good ones. There were a few good ones. Doc knew several. This was a super common sentiment amongst members of the clan, and it was, the whole community of them need to be gotten rid of. But then, on an individual level, they would be friendly and do work with, several individuals, but they had the right to choose who were the good ones, and then who were the garbage that needed to be taken out.
There's a guy, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name because I didn't think about it until just now, but he goes and just will willingly meet modern day clanspeople.
Yeah.
And he just goes and he's just like, hey, I'm cool. Could you be cool? Right? And they just hang out, and then he's gotten so many people out of that just by building a personal connection and then understanding, well, if he's cool, am I the person who's not? You know what I mean? And
But most people in that situation will say, well, that's just one.
Right. Yeah.
And he's fine, but that's not the point. They do these mental gymnastics to make themselves stay the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole sweet potato pie map plan.
That was so cool. I really enjoyed it.
The whole way that all of that got built up was just incredible.
Yeah. Well, and the whole scene where she was like, I would never tell anybody, but let me tell you about my day, right?
Yeah.
Plausible deniability, right?
Right. So that's also it. And we kind of saw that with Fatty, too. He wanted to help Dodo, and he wanted to help Shona and Moshe, but then he also wants to stay out of it. And you're in such a precarious position in this type of situation where you're in a spot where you can do good, but you are labeled as a person who, no matter what you do, you're a criminal.
Right.
And Fatty's already done jail time, and I don't remember who he was talking to, but he would call her Miss Shona, and she was like, "Oh, Bernice."
Yeah, it's just Shona to me.
It's just Shona.
Yeah.
You grew up with her.
Right.
We were friends.
Yeah.
But he kept that safety net distance.
Yeah.
It's tough out here. Malachi's right. America's dirty. What else we got?
The chat's just kind of talking about how everybody's an immigrant, complaining about immigrants, right? It's just, but you're protecting what you have, and I understand that to a certain level, but I think there's abundance enough that if we are, it's not outright clear in this story, but I think a lot about how those who have, and those are the Doc Roberts and the people downtown, pit those who don't against each other, so that they won't come for them, and that is a problem as old as time,
and continues onward.
And that is probably not a problem that we're going to solve anytime soon. But looking at each other and saying, "Well, I don't like you because of the religion you have, or the skin you have, or whatever," those are all things you didn't choose to have and didn't choose to keep. But there are people who have because they have chosen, right? And they are people who have and keep because they have chosen, and then those are the Doc Roberts and the people downtown, and they're the ones who are keeping you the material conditions of your life down. And just dumb.
Goodness. Yeah, but yeah, that's all of my notes for now. Give me a week and I'll have 20 more things to say.
Gotcha.
I kind of still doing that with Verity.
Oh.
It still pops in my head and I still have so much to say. Like, it just,
Really?
things happen and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Here's what I really think about it.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that after.
All these books just cycle through my brain.
Yeah.
The book club's just muddying stuff up in here now.
I had a simple life.
I did.
That's funny. Sorry, we're traumatizing everyone. So thank you for coming along on our journey of traumatization.
I hope y'all enjoyed it. I mean, it was a hard, heavy read, but it was an essential read.
I haven't talked to anybody yet who said that they didn't like it. Everybody has pretty much everybody has been like, I have been uncomfortable, but no one has said like that was a bad book. I don't understand why we read it. You know.
And someone in the chat pointed out this is the kind of uncomfortable we need.
Yeah.
And just speaking of books and reading and what all that does for you, it's so important that we know that these stories happen. There's a fine line between harping on the past and recognizing the past that has built our foundation. We need to remember these things, and it's important for us to have literature as a way to safely explore these things. And when you have people systematically taking literature out of public places, restricting what libraries can have and restricting what access kids have to books like these, that's scary and that's damaging, and that's what I'm going to say about it. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir because people in book clubs believe books should be available to everyone. But it's important that we read these things and that we recommend these things to other people, especially maybe the people who are still on Doc Roberts' side of things. If they can read something like this, if they can just open their eyes and open their hearts to see people are people.
Yeah.
They're not dogs, they're individuals.
Yeah. Reading things like this that are hard in my mind is the same thing as watching someone else burn themselves on a stove. You know, like if you burn yourself on the stove and I realize not to touch a hot stove, then I don't have to go and do it.
Exactly.
And if I can read something about people being racist and petty and gross, then maybe I can learn something so that I don't go into
And
that
we
thing.
can recognize the lower steps of this that lead to the bigger steps. We can nip it at the bud, right? You can see the behaviors when they first start. You can recognize your own thoughts within yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you say something and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of discriminatory that, you know, I say it that way or whatever. It's important. It really does open your mind up and open your heart up. Especially seeing this is another thing that really irks me. The whole, like, you know, as soon as they're confident in their abilities, then we think they're arrogant or whatever. And the same thing goes with, like, they're just trying to survive and provide for their families. So, yeah, they're going to charge at the grocery store and they're going to charge you to come to their theater, and they're going to, that's not them screwing you out of money, that's them being paid for the services they're providing.
Well, and on some level, they're trying to be like you. Isn't that the point? You don't like them because they're not like you. So the more like you they become, the more you like. What do you? You can't win, and that's the point. Right?
Yeah.
Is that you're and you said something earlier, right? Like whenever somebody feels like they are unredeemable or whatever, and I think that there's a real danger there. And I won't get into specifics of where I see it most currently, but whenever people are wrong and they're always wrong and they never get anything right, and because of whatever label they have, whether it be racial, religious, political, whatever, whenever they can't get a win, why should they play, right? Why should they try to be the same as everyone else? Because they follow the rules
doesn't get you where you need to be, well, then you have to start breaking the rules. We can't hold each other to different standards. We should want the same thing for our neighbors that we want for ourselves. And we should want the same thing for the people that live in the community on the other side of the bridge or on the other side of the tracks or on the other side of the whatever. We should want the same things for them that we want for ourselves. There's plenty to go around. We ain't hurting for stuff. Plenty.
let's check in on the chat real quick, and then we're kind of hitting our limits. So, sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Oh, no. Oh, block the mic.
Okay.
Excellent. He is the loudest.
Shelby is again calling for a movie review. I'm on board. I think we're both on board. Maybe after...
Does you have a movie rec?
Well, last week we had talked about Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah.
And I would kind of like to do The Fountain. I think that'd be fun. That's my favorite movie.
We should do A
of all
Brother Where
time.
Art Thou at
We
this
should
point,
do A Brother Where Art Thou.
We
Yeah.
mentioned it.
Well, I definitely think we're on board. We've been kind of talking about doing a movie a month because I think that's manageable.
Oh, yeah, we'd get totally overwhelmed, and
Yeah.
I can't be watching TV like that.
Well, we got to read. we got things to do. So
Look, I was in a bind last
Yeah.
or 2 weeks ago when we were watching Three Body and trying to read the book.
It was too much.
I had to cancel plans. I was like,
was
sorry, I have to watch a TV show, guys. That was playing now.
Yeah, she says it's time to go. Let's see what else. Hey, your friend who finished Iron Flame needs to watch our episodes about it. So
Oh, yeah.
I think they just announced the title for the third book. I can't remember.
Yes, it's...
It doesn't matter.
We'll make a meme about it later. Oh my gosh, like putting Doc Roberts in the Midnight Library. Is there a path where he could have been good?
Yeah.
I'm sure there is.
For most people, there is.
I mean, we all have the choice.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up.
I'm about to cry, okay?
All right. So we're going to take a few minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and we do it live, but you don't need to be there. We're going to put up the syllabus for Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which might be traumatic. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I'm sorry.
It was just recommended to us a bunch in 1 week, so we were
bunch.
like, well,
Yeah.
there we go.
Cool.
Onyx something, yes.
Yes.
I was thinking it started with a O. Good job, Peggy.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for reading along with us. We greatly appreciate everybody being here this week. And we will see you guys next week.
Very cool. I recommend everyone read the chat about Peggy's explanation of the marble.
Fair enough.
Very cool.
All right.
Very cool. All right, you guys. Bye. Happy reading. Difficult.